Thank you guys. Thanks for staying. Thank you, Rosie, for having us. I am very pleased to be here tonight to be able to chair a post-show Q&A with this wonderful female-led company. And just to let you know a few things, if you are doing any social, please be sure, if you're on Twitter, to use the handle and the wonderful writer and performer, Rosie Day. If you're on Twitter, I've also pinned a tweet with the handles for the other ladies on the stage with me, who I'm going to introduce in a moment. The show is also on Instagram, so please follow, give a shout. What else am I going to say? Forgot. I'm so unused to doing this. It's been so long.
We're actually live and in person, not Zoom.
So with these post-show Q&As, just I should say, I don't have anything to do with this production or the theatre. I like to do these post-show Q&As, and people invite me to do them, and it's my great pleasure to do so, particularly when I am such fans of the people involved. So I can get the ball rolling and ask lots of questions, but if you guys have any questions, please do put your hand up and ask at any time. Did anybody else have any experience in the Scouts, by the way?
No.
I was in the guides and the brownies.
Yeah,
but not
I like
Scouts.
to find out from people, like, their experience with the show. And what is so lovely about this show is, well, maybe you didn't do Scouts. There's some debate going on. But no, brownies.
No way. Leaving it out.
But who was or is a teenager? Can everyone remember what that was like?
I did
Everyone
do that.
can remember what that was like. Which is why this show is so special, because it is something we are all part of. So let me introduce you to who is here on the stage with me to talk about that. You will recognize Rosie Day in the middle, who performed Instructions of a Teenage Armageddon, but also wrote it, her debut play. Allegedly. The director, Georgie Staight, and one of the two female producers, Katy Galloway. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let me start, Rosie, with you. This is not my first post-show Q&A with Rosie. Can you believe it was nearly 2.5 years ago that we did a great post-show discussion for a show that Rosie was in at Trafalgar Studios, also a new play called The Girl Who Fell, 2.5 years ago. And I think I'm right in saying that it was part of being in that production that led to this. Is that right?
Well, actually, it was part of the production I did before, but with the same director, Hannah Price, who had dared me as a joke to write her a one-girl play, but specifically about a girl, not a woman, like do a one-girl show rather than a one-woman show. So yeah, it was a dare and a joke, and we are here now. So I don't know how that happened.
But why that? Why that distinction about doing it from a girl's perspective rather than a woman's perspective?
I think because at the time when she dared me to do it, it was very much like the Fleabag effect, and there was so many one-woman shows sort of going on, and I always had played a lot of teenage girls, and the roles for teenage girls in theatre aren't great. There's not that many of them. And so it was very much like, how do we put a teenage girl front and centre telling her own story, was something that I really wanted to do.
I was trying to think about that when I was, and I'm trying to rack my brains for stories about teenage girls that I've seen on stage. Can you think of any?
We were saying it in the dressing room earlier, that it's kind of like there's a gap, particularly for things like TV and
how
media
I learned
generally.
to drive, maybe. How I learned to drive?
It's like you get to maybe 11 and 12, and it's like things aren't necessarily aimed at you, and then you end up watching maybe slightly older TV, like Gossip Girl or Pretty Little Liars. That was what I watched when I was 12 and 13. Yeah. Then it's kind of not that relatable because they're older than you, and it's hard to find that area when you're 13.
Yeah.
It's and you're already thinking where do I belong?
Or they're written by old white men who have never been teenage girls before, and you have to say lines and you're like, we don't talk like this. And never.
Having played a lot of teenage girls, is that something you've
all
experienced?
All the time.
Can you remember a particularly bad one?
Oh no, but it's always you get the descriptions and they're 14 and incredibly beautiful and sexy. And you're like, oh my god, we can't do this anymore.
No days of the week pants.
No days of the week pants in their scripts. So yeah, it was definitely kind of how do we make tell a truthful story of a normal teenage girl.
And Hannah Price dared you.
Yes.
Did you find it scary sitting down to write for write?
It was. I didn't write it with the intention to ever have it on. I wrote it. I was shooting in Spain in a town where there was like nothing to do on the weekends, and so I'd go to this cafe and I just started writing this play, just something to do, and then plot twist. Here we are. Yeah.
Okay, so let's pick up the story, Georgie. How then did you get involved with?
I harassed them.
I think we met. I don't even know how we met. And
Met for
audition.
coffee.
We met for a
Yeah.
coffee in Picture House. I remember that. I think it was just one of those connections where I think we met in an audition maybe or something like that. And then Rosie knew I was into new writing and said, "Can I send you my play?" And I said, "I love plays. Please do." And I read it, and immediately it was one of those ones where I just read and thought, "Wow, this."
So you two hadn't worked together before. You just admired Georgie's work.
I had, yeah. Thought she was really cool and wanted to be her friend, so I was like, wanna do this play with me?
If we do a play together, then we have to.
Then you have to spend time with me. So yeah,
I can completely appreciate that. I'm a fan of her work too. What was it? Was it a particular play that Georgie did that you thought this is somebody who
Putting
can
the
bring?
pressure on.
It was so. I think Chutney was the first time that I became like aware of her kind of amazing work and the reviews from that, and then yeah, I just accosted her. I think I accosted her on Twitter and was like, "Will you go for a coffee with me?"
Oh my god!
That is what I did. I said, "Will you have a coffee with me, please?" And she very kindly said yes.
Well, no, yeah.
And then yeah, and there was like a sort of like, we are a very similar age, so it was very much like we knew how to approach, I guess, the text kind of in that way. So it was a very sort of smooth thing.
Yeah.
And at what stage was Rosie's script when you got involved, Georgie?
It was strange because it was very much a first draft, but it was actually a very fully formed first draft, as first drafts go. Because it's a one-person show and it felt very structured. It felt a really distinctive voice, had a really clear narrative, like so much of what you see on stage. Like the beating heart of it, I don't think has changed throughout the whole 3 years it now must have been that we've been working on it together. And although I think we've changed story and updated references, it's amazing how much like
Culture changes
Culture
even
changes.
since the
There are universal
pandemic.
The
truths,
Wordle joke
right?
gets a laugh every night.
Yeah.
But Georgie's incredibly talented at dramaturgy. That's the right word, right?
I think so.
That's the right word. Yeah, so she really helped a huge amount, like kind of with structure and like how crafting it in the narrative, and
So that I think that's a really important point, because it's not as your job with this is not just what some people might think of as what a director does, but really, shaping
it.
with new work. It is like shaping rather than just.
Yeah, and there's such a trust, I think, involved in that. Yeah, such trust to work on a new script together, and it's like it's your baby, and it's a vulnerable thing to share work with someone at any stage. So I think that's always what's been the foundation of it all, like trusting each other.
You first then did it at the Old Red Lion in 2019.
Yeah.
Had a success there, and I know that Katy wasn't involved then, and I don't mean to disrespect any other producers, but I remember when you put it on, I was thinking, oh, you have two young men producing it for you, which I thought was an interesting choice.
it was sort of a thing that happened where they had approached for female content and I had sent it, and that's how that sort of happened.
Okay.
It's hard to find producers. If we'd
It
known
is.
Katy,
If we didn't.
I was in Edinburgh at the time
Exactly.
at university.
Exactly.
So I was
So then when we got the chance to do it, and it was like we wanted as much as possible to have a female team.
Well, so that was where the point I was going towards. Did you find after that experience that you wanted to bring in other females as part of the process?
All about girl power.
Yeah.
I just work with women forever if I could. Only women. So yeah, absolutely. It was just like, like let's create a team of kick-ass women, really.
And then you
we have some wonderful men involved as well.
We do have leaders. They are phenomenal.
but female-led.
But we do have a wonderful video and sound designer
Who are men.
who are men, and we have a wonderful production manager called Brains, who's great as well.
Yeah.
And we don't hate men.
No.
Just so you
Or
know.
non-binary people, they're great as well.
They're all great. Everybody's great.
Yeah.
But you've, I think it's very interesting because I believe you've formed a collective, a female-led collective to produce at this time. Tell me how that works. What does that mean?
I don't know.
We just kind of, so us four of us three and Zoe, my other producer, were kind of the first people that were kind of, I mean, you guys brought us on, and then we were kind of working on it together and kind of creating our kind of team of what we wanted it to be. And we just kind of, I guess the driving force behind the show and who we wanted to be involved in with the show, and I guess we manage it together, really.
Having shared ownership.
Yeah.
It's,
And and like,
I don't think any of us wanted to really be like, okay, we're
the
in
boss.
charge.
Yeah.
Because that's not really how I produce anyway, because I'd much rather everyone working with us is happy and calm and kind.
Yeah.
and it has been such a lovely sort
Yeah. So it was
of
much
way of doing
it was much more about like working on it together and not having someone be like, I'm the director, so this is my thing, or I'm the producer, or I wrote it. So it was much more about us all working together.
And I think that also is really nice, considering it is a solo show, that one person has written as well as performing. It makes it very clear that even with just one person on stage, it's a team effort, isn't it?
Oh my god, absolutely. It's a gang.
It's a big gang.
It's a hard thing doing a one-person show as well. It's
So
really
lonely.
hard. That moment, like before a show, right, where you're used to having like
People
in
to
the
play
dressing
with.
room and the bars, and it's
Yeah.
once like the press night buzz goes and the everyone
Leaves.
dissipates. Essentially, we're trying to
You
come
get
back
left.
and be here for Rosie, but it's a lonely thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, in this staging of it, you do have a little bit more company, don't you? Because you've made some changes.
Yeah. So we've got some video people.
Yeah, so the video contributions, that is something that's been added since the Old Red Line,
Yeah.
So just for the benefit of those who might be watching at home, tell us who is in these amazing video contributions.
So we have the amazing Amanda Abington plays my mum, Philip Glenister plays my dad, and Olivier nominee Isabella Pappas plays my best friend.
She's an Olivier nominee?
She got nominated when she was 11. Yeah, she's a total child. She was 11. She was nominated for the
Nether.
And who plays Sarah?
Oh, the amazing Jess Ellaby. They are all my friends who I essentially told them they had to come and play with me.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask. How did you persuade them? And talk about the filming, because it looked like the filming was a lot of fun.
I've worked with them all in some capacity and became very good friends with all of them, and we knew that we wanted to do something sort of different and bigger for this aspect of Teenage Armageddon, and we also wanted to turn it into a film. So we spent the summer shooting, I guess, and
In 2020, right?
no, last year,
Oh,
2021.
Oh, no, last year.
Yeah. And
Time goes fast in the
it
pandemic.
really
Yeah, I know.
and and I was very lucky that they all said yes and came and joined us and sort of played those like characters, which kind of creates the whole world, I think,
Yeah.
of
Really.
our world.
That you get to interact with.
They can interact with, yeah.
Quite surreal shooting a club scene at 11 a.m. with no music.
Oh.
Freezing. So that's essentially what happened.
It
But
was.
I've never shot a scene in a club, but obviously you can't have music, so you've got to have the sound.
Yeah, so everyone was like
So
dancing,
everyone's there
like,
being like, "Hi,
like-
cool!" At
and
11
then,
a.m.
like no
just-
music, and
yeah.
it was
It was very surreal, but
That's what actors do. Georgie, can you help me shout out some of the other creators and tell a little bit about the set and what's going on?
All of our wonderful woodchip.
Yeah.
yes. So we have this is brought to life by a wonderful set designer, Cara Evans, who I guess sort of is trying to bring in the world of the bedroom and the scout world together. And I also have to shout out our production manager, Brains, because when we wanted fire in what essentially is a big fire kindling woodchip pit, they were not rose to the challenge, and it was never an issue. And
They were never fazed by the fire.
No.
probably the most comprehensive risk assessment. So Brains is our production manager who sort of built it all. Wonderful sound designer as well, Sam.
And Dan Light, who did our videos.
And I will say that this I didn't realise it was a thing. So with the video and projection there, because people might be interested in this, I don't know. There's a thing called projector paint, which costs about £300 a gallon, and it's different to black paint, and it allows you. These are just the things you find out.
It's
by
only
doing
now I
shows.
sit here actually that I see that
You
it's
can
any
see,
different.
right, the slight difference of what the wall's painted in and what that's painted in.
apparently it's got like crushed diamond or maybe
Crushed
glass.
basically, and diamonds.
Also diamonds. It's got diamonds and gold diamonds in it.
And that's what makes Dan's video look so brilliant on that wall. And then Holly, our wonderful lighting designer. And they've just been nominated for an Offie, Holly and
They
Holly.
have, yes.
Holly
So
and
we're also
Dan, which is
celebrating
great.
3 Offie nominations.
Mm.
Best
Rosie,
lead,
Rosie, lighting,
and video.
Yeah. So
So
Holly and Dan.
So well done that we got to shout them all out. Okay, questions? Any questions? Anyone?
You don't have to have them.
You really do.
You can.
But you
Yeah, come on, I can just hog them all. Let me see. Oh,
Are those wood bits actual wood?
They
are
are.
they actual tree stumps?
The tree stumps
Shall
are,
I
yeah.
try and give you a splinter?
It's real.
It's real. It's real. It's play safe as
You
well.
can even keep it
Yeah.
if you want.
We
She'll
stole
sign-
it from
she'll
a
sign
playground.
Yeah.
You'll sign the
It's,
wood.
it's play safe wood chip. We're actually looking for a playground to donate it to at the end of this.
Yeah. If anyone knows about a
Anyone knows
playground,
any primary schools or anyone that needs some wood chips?
Oh, that's awesome. And sorry, did you have a question, Sarah?
Yeah, so you mentioned the last incarnation didn't have projection.
Yeah.
How were those moments navigated before, and what was the reason behind the shift?
before it was me just doing the dialogue, so it was me just having conversations with myself,
Which you're very good at.
which is my least favourite part of the show. I think we just wanted to expand the world, didn't we? Really?
I think it felt like we wanted to sort of have a reason to come back and do something different with it and really fill out her world, really feel, I guess, like we were doing something visually interesting and different and new. And I think there are, as we've mentioned, quite a lot of one-person shows around. And we're like, right, how can we engage people? How can we do something different and also add to that sense of like overwhelm, I think, as well, of what it's like to be a teenager, like visual, digital. And we had debates about how far to go with like the social media angle, and we actually decided to sort of leave that out, because that was in early conversations that would be a part of the digital world, and we decided that it would be more about visual storytelling and adding in another medium.
And bringing her world to life in a way.
Yeah.
I feel like you get very immersed in it, and you obviously meet all the other characters, and it becomes, because it's so easy in one-woman shows to have it be like, oh yes, this is all on stage. I feel like with this show, with the video design, you get so immersed in it that you can't help but know that it is a very relatable story, and this is what a lot of teenage girls go through. Not everyone, but parts of it maybe. Not all at once, maybe not.
Not as high tech as the video, but another thing I really loved was the use of the microphone and just, selectively when you're playing different characters, as well as that angry inner dialogue. That's such a powerful moment. Like I was, getting ready to scream along with you.
I can't take any credit for that.
Yeah.
Microphone. Well, it was originally just going to be for the Britney dance. I'm like, right, we're going to just have a microphone.
Yeah.
Mike for one moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what made you decide at which points were you going to use the microphone?
I think it was sort of slightly about, this version was about you as a storyteller taking real ownership over the story and like welcome to my world and trying to make exciting choices, and that if a teenager was going to make a show in their own bedroom, they would make every single like choice extra and exciting, and they're not held back by any sort of constraints that we were. And we didn't want to have to like justify it in some ways. We were like, right, let's just make exciting, bold, interesting choices.
Very good. I have a couple of non sequitur questions, I think, but just tell me, Rosie, the title
Instructions for a Teenage Armageddon.
and why is it that called that?
It's called that because I made it up when I was Christmas shopping once, and I was like, I've got to call this play something. How does this sound? And I texted Georgie about 7 different options, and that's the one we settled on. But then we went for it because
I'd love to
And
see a list
slight-
of those options.
oh no,
now.
I've got them somewhere. But also slightly, and some reviewers slightly missed the point on this one, is that it's called Instructions for a Teenage Armageddon, not because it's the apocalypse, not because you're expecting something horrific to happen, but when you're young, everything you feel everything so deeply, and so lots of things do feel like the end of the world, and very rightly so.
Yeah.
So that's why it's an Armageddon, and she goes through a heck of a lot in the play. Actually, I'm like, it is a bit of an Armageddon,
And I
to
mean,
be fair.
I still feel like that sometimes. I came into the dressing room today and was like, Rosie, 3 things went wrong at work and I think I'm going to get fired. I'm not.
So-
I'm not. That's not happening.
So it is slightly hyperbolic, but I think that's.
I think we're all prone to a little catastrophizing.
Yeah.
That's perfectly understandable. But you rightly say that there are some very serious topics that are dealt with in the play that the character goes through. Did you research bereavement, eating disorders? What kind of preparation did you do for tackling those big topics?
So I'm an ambassador of a teenage mental health charity called FOR that I think we spoke about with the
I
young
know.
folk.
I was hoping you
Yeah, and so I've done a lot of work with teenagers and kind of seen what they've gone through. And I read an article in The Independent years ago that was like 1 in 4 teenage girls self-harm, and I was like, great,
Oof.
that's a quarter. And if it was like any other section of society, I feel like that's a pandemic in its own right and would get attention because it's teenage girls, and it's like, oh, being a teenager is really hard. You know, it's always expected in some way, and so I guess that was the real sort of starting point of Teenage Armageddon. But yeah, researched it. I think like with most one-person shows, there's an element of like stuff people bring from their own lives that they've kind of gone through. So it's kind of like a combination of all of those things, really. Yeah.
Let us also shout out that Instructions for a Teenage Armageddon is not just a stage play, it is also
A book in a weird twist of fate.
Not a fiction book.
Not a fiction book. It's a non-fiction guide for teenage girls to get through their teenage years with a whole host of amazing women who have written sort of essays on a whole host of different topics. That came about completely by chance because somebody had seen the preview run and approached me and said, would you like to turn this into a book? And I said, seriously? Yeah, that'd be great. And yeah, so that's sort of, yeah.
And some girls came today and with their books to sign.
Are you selling the book out here? You should be selling it.
Oh,
We've got some copies on the way.
Yes.
But some girls came today and had already got their books and bought them with them.
Very sweet.
The end of the play, the character is speaking to, pass on some of the wisdom to a younger relative. And if you haven't, you should take this away. This is the printout of that. You've got it.
She's got it.
It's good. Oh, look, she's got it.
Words to live by.
Does that feature in the book?
Did that feature the book? No. I did try. No, so I've written. So there's elements of it, but the book's sort of quite different from the play.
I'm framing this because these are still
My
are
favourite
still
one
very,
is the one
very
about the
wise
earrings.
words.
They do infect your ears.
Yes, they do.
Get proper earrings, guys.
Get proper. Some very, very handy advice here. So, my final question to all of these 3 amazing women on the stage with me. What would you tell your 13-year-old self from the
I
perspective
get asked that all the time.
Have you found a good answer yet?
No, you guys go first.
Georgie goes first.
You could choose one. Georgie, what would you tell your 13-year-old self?
This is one that
Cool
I feel
is just a concept.
Oh.
I think that's what I would say.
The what is?
Cool doesn't exist.
Cool doesn't exist.
Cool doesn't exist.
And also, cool changes like things that my 13-year-old self would have been like, oh my god, that's really uncool. My 15-year-old self was like, oh my god, you need to like those things now because they are cool.
Yeah.
Everything, it changes so much.
Yeah.
Cool doesn't exist. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think it's all about Cool is about being passionate. That's what it is about being passionate about a thing.
One that I still live by, probably. Everything happens for a reason. Those friends that kind of you grow away from, that's okay. I feel like you can't always be friends with everyone, and those friends that you grow away from, or that job you didn't get, or that, I don't know, that test that you failed, that's okay, and everything happens for a reason. It makes you stronger, and
That's a really
not like the really bad things.
I think,
but
I think freelancers as well, really in our industry, really have to believe
it's
that.
one that I really have to go, and particularly during the pandemic, I had to be everything, because I would apply for other jobs during the pandemic that were outside the industry, and then I was like, no, everything I do, if I didn't get them, then I was like, no, it's all fine, because there's something better waiting, and that's okay.
I would just add to that even the really bad things, they're also
There's
really
light,
good.
Yeah.
They make you resilient.
Yeah.
And that is the best.
You can't always see it at the
best.
time.
That's your superpower,
But
is resilience.
Yeah.
You can't always see it at the time, but you do. And then one day you look back at it and you're like, that was okay. It was bad at the time, but that was all okay.
Very good. And Rosie,
I gave you enough time to
best
think.
of luck.
Probably Georgie will laugh because I still do it, but don't be so hard on yourself and talk. You got to talk. I think the more you bottle things up, it's not going to help anything. So if you can find a way to sort of express yourself through any medium, that will help you, I think, hugely.
And be kind to your mum.
That's
That's a big
and
one.
Your dad.
And your dad. Be kind to your parents.
Yes, yeah, and be kind to yourself, which
And
is
be
one
kind
of,
to yourself,
which is one of
yeah.
the things here. And I also, I can't, my eyesight's too bad, I can't find it immediately. But what is the line about loving yourself as a rebellious act?
Oh, liking yourself is a rebellious act, so do it often.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Very
my
important.
favourite
I
line.
have to say, through meeting teenagers, though, through just generally research for this play and working with young people in theatre and all of that and audiences, I'm like, the future's in better
Oh
hands.
my god, it's in such better hands.
Like,
Yeah.
I do.
It's in your
I do.
hands.
It's always in your hands. No pressure.
Pressure.
It is. Smarter, way
Yeah.
smarter, way more
Wait,
savvy.
wait, hold, let me just hold on a second. How old are you people?
29.
29?
I'm not saying because I'm definitely not a teenager.
23.
Oh my gosh, you guys! From the much older generation to all of you.
Terri, you're not a day over 32.
Oh my gosh! That's the best line of the night. Okay, I'm gonna go home now. Anyway, I feel that my future is in better hands when I've got theatre makers like you guys coming up.
Fingers crossed for the future of theatre.
Yeah. Okay, so join me guys thanking Katy and Rosie and Georgie.